He's raised awareness of extremism and terrorism, and he spoke of the danger of the Khalistani movement in 1984, before the tragedy of Air India. I think it was it 892, if I got it right? I'm delighted that Mr. Dosanjh can be here. We've discovered that we'd overlapped in time in Vancouver, working for one of the same parties provincially, so I'm more than doubly thrilled he's here. And we've asked him to speak about, well, to set the tone and to tell us how important it is that we pay attention to the signs, the messages that we're seeing today.
Well, thank you very much. I just came here as an observer, and I've been commandeered to say a few words, and so bear with me. This issue that this conference is addressing is a very, very important issue. It has been important, particularly in the context of Air India and the Khalistani extremism, since 1984. Politicians in this country have neglected this issue for a very, very long time. When Air India happened, politicians in this country thought these are brown people, they belong to India, no Canadians, so Mulrooney actually extended condolences to Rajiv Gandhi. I had been attacked in February of '85 and hospitalized 2 or 3 months before Air India, and I had written to all of the attorneys general across the country, including the federal attorney general as well as the prime minister. I may have received maybe 2 or 3 replies to that letter. And the letter said, and if I remember correctly, that if this violence is not nipped in the bud, if extremism is not challenged at its core, we may have murders in this society. And unfortunately, my words came true in the largest aviation terror in the history of the world before 9/11. Politicians need to address this issue. For the last many years, I would say they've been not only silent, but their silence has been complicity in extremism. Because if you're silent in the face of extremism in your own country, you may have all the good charters attached to your constitutions, they mean absolutely zero. Because if you don't have the courage to speak, extremism will continue to grow. And in fact, if you do not protect and defend the values that are enshrined in that charter, the values, remember, as Canadians, those values that are enshrined in the charter came first. Charter simply enshrined those values. Values don't come from the charter. Values come from the Canadian experience. Values come from our history, our politics, our development of the country. We're not perfect. We're actually more perfect than most. And politicians haven't had the courage, generally speaking, to confront terrorism in the name of so-called multiculturalism, in the name of so-called not offending people. And I think that that's been a tragedy in this country. It's being changed. It is changing a little. Former Prime Minister Harper spoke some days ago and clearly said that if we dream of governing for Canadians as Canadian political parties, then these kinds of extremist, sectarian, separatist elements have no place in those political parties that dream of governing this country. And that was the clearest expression yet of what I have been saying for a long, long, long time. And in fact, what Prime Minister Carney has done by simply ignoring the Khalistani extremists and trying to extend a friendly hand to India despite the problems that we have. You know, when you are governments of two great countries like Canada and India, a shared history of Commonwealth and all of those things, you can actually work on multiple tracks. If Canada thinks it has a problem vis-a-vis so-called Niger assassination, then it can work on that. Yet, we should not be saying that India becomes an enemy based on one suspicious criminal activity. And I think it's important for us to remember that, particularly now, with Mr. Trump across the border, we need to have friendly countries with whom we can trade and have exchanges and the like. I want to mention one of our former prime ministers, whose name you all know, starts with a T. Not the older T. I had the ultimate respect for the older T, who actually said, watch me, you know, when he dealt with the extremists, Quebecois extremists. I remember him saying in the Vogue magazine in one of his first interviews after he took over, that Canada has no mainstream, that we have no core values. Well, if we don't have a mainstream, if we don't have a core value, we actually have no business being a country. The fact that we are a country, the fact that we have produced something like Charter of Rights from our previous experiences, that tells you that you're a country, that you're a great country. But because certain people like him did not believe that we have core values, they did not defend those core values. It's a free for all. I remember his famous expression, if you come to Canada, you can be who you are. Well, I say to Canadians, and I've said this many times, if you want to come to Canada and you want to be who you are better off where you are because you are who you are already. Because when you come to Canada, learn something about our values, integrate, become a Canadian, and make sure that we are a peace-loving, peaceful country. And one more thing I must say, CSIS report, the recent CSIS report that has been now produced and publicized without amendment, without changes, is essentially the same report that was changed during Mr. Trudeau's time. Mr. Trudeau allowed CSIS report to devalue the CSIS report. He allowed the amendments to be made at the behest of the Khalistani extremists that sat in the Liberal Party at that time. And Mr. Carney, by actually releasing that report without amendment, without a comment, has re-established the principle that national security is paramount in this country and that no politician should be interfering with the report of an independent entity such as CSIS, because if we undermine their reports and rewrite their reports, we are undermining the national security of this country. Yeah. At whose behest? At the behest of extremists who want to dismember friendly countries 15,000 miles away, which they have no business doing. Now let me finish by saying, I have said this before, and I'm now going to talk about the Khalistanis for a second. Khalistanis going to Hindu temples and creating disturbances have only one aim in that context. Their aim is to sow division between Hindus and Sikhs in Canada. And then they dream of exporting that division, Canadian bred and born, to India to create problems for that country. So I say to you that we must fight that attempt to create a division between Hindus and Sikhs, which has never existed in history. 84 was an aberration. We all know that. Hindus and Sikhs had lived side by side. And in fact, I say, look, you can have all the problems with Mr. Modi from different points of view. But one thing you can't say about Mr. Modi is that he hates the Sikhs. He thinks Sikhs are part of him. So, you know, I think that we need to understand that that's not how things work. So let me just say this about Sikhs, about Khalistani saying Sikhs are being victimized in India, they want Khalistan, therefore we're helping them. There was a recent Pew Research done, international Pew Research. They did some research on patriotism among the Sikhs in India. 96.4% of the Sikhs are as patriotic as any other ethnic in that country. So I say to the extremism and the Khalistani extremism, you want a Khalistan? Perhaps you could persuade Canadians to give you some land. I've said that before, right? So I wish you success in discussing what you're going to discuss. I wish you a long, successful struggle. I wish it were shorter, but it's not going to be short. It's going to be a long struggle. It's been with us for a long time. And I'm there with you in the trenches. I'm happy to be here. I didn't come to speak. I thank Daniel to allow me to speak beforehand. This is his place. I'm taking. And so thank you very much. All power to you and all success to you in fighting extremism and violence in Canada and across the world. Thank you.
A really important conference like that, and no mainstream media showed up, but we are here to show you the other side of the story. So if you appreciate our work and you want to support us, please go over rebelfieldreports.com, chip in whatever you want, couple of bucks to help us to continue to show you the other side of the story, because I drove from Montreal to Toronto to show you. Thanks.